People are getting anxious.
Yeah.
We are live.
Yeah.
We are live. I will post the link now
We're
to
live.
Discord.
Yeah.
People are getting.
Okay. So this is the link. Let me just post this really quick on Discord while we wait for people to come in. I'll post this in announcements. Session is live on YouTube. Just now and here. Okay. So post in Discord. Let's also get this on Twitter really quick, where we can see that. Here, AMA session is live.
Yeah. We were live a bit before, right? Oh, yo, hello. Hey there. A lot of people are showing up now.
That's good.
There's a delay, right?
There's bound to be a little bit of delay. We reduce the latency, but there will be a little bit of delay. Games are on YouTube right now. Look forward to your join us.
Seems to be like 30 seconds or something.
It's pretty standard, unless we put the ultra low latency option. The show will be posted on the YouTube channel after. Okay, so it's been posted on
30
Twitter
people already.
and Discord. Yeah, let me also open up my own chat. Guys, it's how's anybody tuning in? Just let us know how the audio and video look like. Just to make sure you guys hear us loud and clear. Yeah. Hi guys. Yeah, Zach went to sleep. Hi Ed. Zach went to sleep. He asks you guys to forgive him for not showing up this time. Yeah, it's good to hear that you guys hear us loud and clear. Yeah, don't worry about missing the AMA. We will post it on our YouTube channel on the Equine. So also apologize. This is actually posted on Fadukan channel. The live session cooldown on YouTube is 24 hours. That was an unexpected hitch, but we will post this on the Equine YouTube channel right after the session, hopefully, or as long as it takes to process that. Zach is here. Yeah, Zach Jones is here. Thank you for joining. Okay, so yeah, let's get this started. After we get people joining, let's just make sure that people come and join. We are very happy to receive so many questions, and we're delighted also to see the amount of interest that everyone has. This is clearly shown by the detail and the depth of some of the questions, and also the amount of interaction. I actually have an idea. Okay, let me do this real quick. Yeah, the magic of streaming. So I will add one thing, and I hope it's not gonna be too noisy. Yeah, so this is the Equine menu music. Guys in the meeting will not hear it, but people on stream should. The audio level of the music shouldn't be too loud. If it is, just let me know. Okay. Hi Alejandro, hi everyone. Happy birthday, Troy. And thank you for the support, Chris. I appreciate it. Yeah, this music is the menu music. So this is supposed to be what also plays in the game menu later on. It's designed to be a more quiet kind of theme where you can listen to it for a while. Yeah, I'm glad you like it. There's much more. There's much more. It's original music. We have a very talented composer. We haven't yet shown our creative team, which we owe you guys to share, and owe also them, because we will give them credit for all the work they've made to create this amazing Pioneer collection. I love game music. So yeah, the music is one of those things. We made this an original soundtrack for every single. It does sound like RPG music. I told the guy, hey, listen, I want something that fits for horse racing, but I also want some inspiration from the golden age JRPGs. And I know a lot of people love that kind of music. It's designed to be listened for a while. It's not Zelda music. It's not call anyone you want. It's original. We're very confident. We also made unique original themes for every single jockey out of the Pioneer collection. There's a lot of questions coming in, but just for clarity, we will, for housekeeping sake, first we'll start with the questions which we received on Discord earlier, which we've kind of coordinated into kind of a sequence of questions. And then later on, we'll take all questions on YouTube. So just for sake of people putting in their questions at the right time. We appreciate if your comments could be maybe the ones that contain questions to be left until when we're at that stage. I'll actually take questions that are really fast to answer until we are ready. I guess we can take 2 more minutes and then we can start. Possible to see sneak peeks of the art? Yes, definitely. We've been tweeting about them. On EquineNFT Twitter. Or you could get on our Discord. You go to the tweets channel, and that's going to give you an easy overview. Dun, 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 That's my favorite part.
No, don't forget, with the delay, you're probably way off.
It's fine. Yeah. I mean, the way we do it usually, if we're streaming with delays, we just handle things as they come, and people are gonna see them when they come. There's an ultra low latency mode, but because it's YouTube, not Twitch, so if you restart the stream, you're gonna get a whole new link, and everyone's gonna be left out. So it's kind of a big cost, unless they fix that, but I don't remember them fixing it. So even if you want to adjust the setting, it's kind of a cost of resetting the whole link in your audience. So one more time, please, we request everyone with a question to leave it until a little bit later, or maybe we should, I guess, record them somewhere. Just because we will go through some, let's say, pre-received or the questions we received on Discord before we take the live questions.
And it will probably answer a lot of them already.
Yeah,
as
correct,
well.
correct. No max mint amount, except how many get minted during the 24 hours. That will be the max mint amount. So we will know the answer to that on the 19th of December, basically. Yeah. Can you use one jockey for multiple horses? Yes. Are they bound for a certain amount of time? No. What's incentivizing people to hold jockeys? It's basically to have options if you want to, because there's 6 different personalities. From a functional point of view, having one of each is gonna be enough for every single type of functionality. The rest is collectability. So there's 10 different characters. So you might prefer one over the other. You might want to create a full set of all 6 personalities of Malik, for example. You might instead want one from each personality of different mix and match. You might be that crazy collector who collects all 60 different possible jockeys of the Pioneer collection. Some people are like that and they enjoy that type of collection. So yeah, I mean, knock yourselves out. It's a bundle with separate NFTs. It's meant to also allow people and give them the freedom of trading whatever they like and keeping whatever they do. Jonathan, I'm from Qatar, in the Middle East. How many sets are we hoping to sell? It's becoming much more of a live session though. I mean, I'm enjoying answering, but how many sets are we hoping to sell? Well, we set a minimum of 5,000 bundles. If that isn't hit, the sale is gonna extend until that number is reached. So that's the minimum. And that's what we feel will give us a comfortable ground to continue development. We'd rather not do a limited time mint, but then also fail below people's expectations in development. So that's why we made it a minimum with no maximum for 24 hours. If we go beyond the 24 hours, 5K is going to be the maximum and the minimum. Yeah, Troy, the timing you mentioned is correct. Come on, Ed. There's all kinds of collectors on Cardano. It's not related to any place. And there are
It's
skins.
9:30. I think we should start on the questions.
Time flies very fast. Yes, please. Mark, if you may start with our listed questions. I'll reduce the volume a little bit.
Sure. So thanks everyone for joining, and we'll definitely take the live questions as well, but we ask our community to share their questions ahead of time on Discord. We got quite a good selection of quite a few questions that we try to group into in where we've seen similarities, and we'll try to answer them in a relatively fast way, although knowing us, it will probably take a little while with all the details. Fahad, I think I'll skip the generic stuff because we are already 15 minutes in anyway, so it'll be hard to find it. We can record it as a separate video later. The generic overview thing that
I think it's helpful. I think it still helps to set the tone.
Okay,
We can still edit it.
So let me start with that.
Yes, please.
So for those who already have seen our project for a while, this might not be news, but we felt like it would be good to have a very quick summary of what Equine is, like maybe 5 minutes max, before we go to the questions, because some questions that we're seeing even here in the live chat, they are kind of something that we answered already and could be answered quite easily. So let me start by saying that Equine is a horse racing and breeding management game on Cardano network. The idea here is that we want to replicate the fun and excitement of participating in horse racing, both from the race, from the basically horse owner perspective. So players will own the horse through the NFT and will be able to use it in the game once the game is fully launched. Our horses are quite unique. What we wanted to focus on is a bit of the realism in this experience. So our horses will live and die on the blockchain, right? So each horse lives 18 calendar months, which represents 18 years of the horse life. There is a bit of an exception for the pioneers. We'll explain it a bit later. The horses will have two sets of stats: physical, which will be visible in your NFT, you will be able to check them, and mental, which will always be hidden. However, it's important to keep in mind that even the physical stats will evolve over time, right? So when you get your fresh pioneer horse, you will not know his full potential. You will only know how his stats look at the age of 2, because pioneer horses will start at the age of 2. There will be also a jockey, right? So in our bundle, we'll also include a jockey, and jockey will act as a modifier to those mental stats that are hidden. So you don't really need a jockey to race, because if you don't equip one, you will basically just assume that you don't have a modifier, you will get an average jockey. But if you understand your horse well, choosing the right jockey can really help him become a better horse, a better racer. In terms of races themselves, most of them will have a paid entry, where we plan to use the entry fee to basically pay for the prizes for the top 3 winners, and a small part of the entry fee will be used for payments for rewards in free races that we also want to include, and some small support for the system maintenance and stuff like that. Once the horse reaches 3 years old in the game, so 3 months, it will be possible to move the horse to breeding. And this is a big decision, because once you move to breeding, you will not be able to race anymore. You can move it at any time. You can move it at the age of 10 or 12. That's your decision, but you will not be able to go back to racing.
For the horse, not the player, right? The horse will not be able to race again. But if you have multiple horses, for example, then one can still race, and it's a per horse decision. Yeah, you can please.
Yes, definitely. And then like looking in more details for breeding, so the idea is again to keep it realistic. Mares will be able to breed once a month, which is 1 horse year, while studs will be able to, of course, cover multiple mares per month. We are still discussing, as this will depend a lot on the game balance, and we'll have to be a bit elastic and figure out how it works. We want to make it fun for everyone, but we are thinking that about 5 times per month is a realistic and good amount. It might change a bit up or a bit down depending on number of horses that are being used for breeding, the proportion of studs to mares, and all that stuff. If you have 2 horses of 2 different genders, you can of course breed them together within your own stable, but if you only have 1, you will be able to connect with other players and use and basically bring 2 horses together to create offspring, and we will have a system in place where the owner of the stud will be able to quote what is the cover fee, depending of course on what kind of stud it is. They might choose higher or lower price, while the owner of the mare will keep the new baby horse. So there will be a benefit for both sides. The other thing that's unique for Equine is that we want to make the game more fun, so we decided to include different horse and jockey skins. Those are purely cosmetic, no impact on the performance of the horse, but we thought it would be funny if you could have a clown horse racing with demon horse, for example. Of course, we also appreciate that some people who will play Equine are more purist and want to have a pure racing experience, so there will be always an option to turn off the skins for all the horses in the race that you are watching. Now moving on quickly to our sale. So the sale is coming on December 18th, 1 minute after midnight UTC. It will be open for 24 hours. So we are not limiting the amount of horses people can buy in terms of the number. Like, we are not saying it's 10,000, 5,000, whatever. We are saying 24 hours. We want everyone who wants the horse to have a chance to get one or more. As we said already, or mentioned already earlier, this horses that we'll be selling will be called pioneer horses. So they will be a little bit different from the horses that will be later in the game, that will be created through breeding, etc. Because first of all, they will only activate, they will only start aging after they're activated in the game, right? So there's no issue. We know the game will take some time to develop. And even when it's ready, you might not decide to start racing your horse right away. You can wait a little bit, and that's okay. There's no like deadline for that. Pioneer horses will start as 2 years old, so they can start racing right away, because horses can only start racing when they are 2-year-old. And the one extra important thing, which is, also for us to make them a little bit more special, to thank everyone who supports us early on in the project. The pioneer horses, when they die, like every other horse, normally when the horse dies, the NFT you will still keep the NFT. It doesn't disappear, but it turns into a ghost or the statue, depending on how well the horse performed through their lifetime. But with pioneer horse, you will also get another token, which you will be able to use to draw another pioneer horse, which will be completely random. It's not gonna be a same horse. It will be a different random horse. Can be better, can be maybe a bit worse. But this is an exciting option, because once you own that horse, it will be yours, until it dies, and then you can roll again. One more thing, the bundle, which includes horse, jockey, and the random skin, which could be either jockey or a horse, or if it's a premium skin, it's a combination of horse and a jockey skin, will cost 250 ADA. Quick update where we are right now. We are almost done with all the NFT assets. We are finalizing. We have 1 week. We are working hard. I'm not exaggerating saying day and night. We are across the globe, so we pretty much cover 24/7 in a day. Someone is working on Equine in our team. So it's almost ready for the sale. We do have a working racing and breeding engine prototype, so there is no visualization that we can share. This is also a question that came up. But for now, we are focusing more on the technical side, making sure that that all the stats and all the elements we want to have in the game are playing the role properly. And we also are already in discussions with the team that we want us to help build the app that will work with the Cardano blockchain. There are other things that we are considering, but it will be for the future situation, for the future development, which is more, let's say, pay-to-earn type of gameplay, like some tasks and mini games that could allow people to maybe earn some extra skins or extra bonus NFTs within the game, but this is not the core of the game. Right now we are focusing on racing and breeding and trading. And at this stage, because that's again is quite a common question, we are not discussing or not considering betting to be a part of the core Equine platform. But it's not something that's completely out of questions. There are some options. There might be third-party kind of solution, but as of today, we are not yet planning to launch anything directly through Equine. So that's the quick summary. Hopefully that might have answered some of the questions, but I think we can move straight to answering the questions we actually got. So we basically divided into few buckets. We have the bucket related to sale, related to racing, related to horses and jockeys and breeding, and then a bit more about future plans and the roadmap. So I don't know if Fahad or Nick, I talked a lot, so maybe one of you can start, kick it off.
Let me pick this up. So First and most important question that everyone is asking is when, and that's the when button. And December 18th, you have the answer on the stream layout. What's the best wallet to use for ADA? Now, the 24 hours window, we hope that will reduce the congestion, and with less congestion, even the light wallets should not have a problem in theory. If you guys surprise us with even more attention than we expect, which is already a lot, there might be a little bit of challenge. If we are faced with a scenario of, for example, continuous congestion on the blockchain, just a what if question, we might consider extending the sale, just because if people are basically, let's say, limited out of buying just because the network is slow, in case that happens. But we would hope that this 24-hour window is enough for everyone to be able to get in and do their buys whenever. We encourage people actually to not all pile up in the first second. We encourage people to just do it at their time of convenience. There shouldn't be an impact from the order of minting. It's not whoever comes first gets a better chance at a reroll and anything like that. So we hope that you guys are comfortable in doing it whenever. That's one. And the next question is, so the short answer is any Cardano wallet. Daedalus, Yoroi, CC Wallet, CC Vault now actually, Nami, Adalite, Typhoon. We haven't tried it yet, but I've heard about it. Most important thing is don't send ADA from an exchange, because that does not support NFT, and you won't get the NFTs back, basically. A question we got, that one was from Troy, actually. Thank you, Troy. Melao Gaming was asking, will the bundles have a rarity tag to them? No. We decided that we'll treat the bundle as just that, as just a bundle. There's no explicit rarity. It's rather each NFT can be a different rarity. So you could get a common horse, a rare skin, a rare jockey. You could get all 3 commons, all 3 rares, any combination possible. It's not really meant to be like an explicit rarity of one whole bundle. But that also means that there's a good chance that you get something rare in one element rather than the other. That's one or the other. We got from Warmish Comet, can I buy in bundles? Example, 5 bundles in one transaction. Yes, we do plan to have that, because basically when it's unlimited, there's basically no difference for someone to buy 5 bundles or 1, except that they need to enter in 5 different buys. There's no reason to put that penalty on whoever wants to buy more, and give them that inconvenience of having to do that. Being a person who's personally bought in drops before bundles were a function and bought hundreds, I'll admit, then it has been something that's very time consuming. The result is the same in the end, so there's no point in adding that inconvenience to someone who wants to buy 5 bundles, for example, or 10, to make it 2 transactions. The other thing is also the network congestion. The transaction fees will be more if you have to do more transactions. There's really no point in penalizing people with that. Hercule said, how many bundles can one address buy at the same time? Is there a limit? No, it's an open mint, so any person who wants to mint will be able to do so. We do expect some crowd maybe to cause a little bit of delay in the peak periods, but the reason we went with a 24-hour open mint is that nobody's worried about missing out. That's the whole, let's say, aspect of it, is that we would rather that people don't miss out and basically have to go and buy from secondary at a higher price just because we wanted to make it limited. Yes, Jaber, the video will be available. We will post it on the EquineNFT channel, and we'll post the links on Twitter. Can the mint be sealed and revealed at a later date? Yes, but we will make it an immediate reveal. It's just much more exciting. And also later reveals can be complicated, and they will also incur costs for updating all of the NFTs this early. We also think that some people might want to see, for example, whether they got a male or a female combination. They might make a decision to mint more if they'd like to have a certain combination. So even though it's kind of exciting in one way to delay the reveal, we'd rather have it instant. It's just a much better buying experience from the buying side as well. Any updates regards to the white paper release date? We definitely want to have that before the drop. We anticipated to have this as early as this weekend. We still hope to have it by Monday, hopefully, to give people a bit of time to read. But the contents will be basically the same things that we are explaining here as a system, but we would like to break it down into a more easy to digest, readable, let's say, version. Will the skin in the bundle be a horse skin or a jockey skin? That's random. So the skin will be either or, unless you get a deluxe skin, and then the deluxe skin is one single NFT, but that will impact the visual of both the horse and the jockey. So the skeleton skin is one example, where if you equip that, then you get both the skeleton jockey and the horse together in one NFT. We go to racing, where I'll also get some help from Nick here about the systems and so, but I'll start with some questions. So we have Philast asking, assuming you do not need a skin to race, just the horse and jockey. And yes, you really only need a horse to race. Somebody's saying the video has crashed. Oh, I just realized this. Let me see what this is about. You guys have the video. Okay, video is back apparently. And it keeps crashing. Let me do this and see if it helps. Yeah, okay. Thank you for bringing that up in chat. Where did I... Here's the question. Okay. So... Yeah, so we only need the horse to race. The jockeys act as a modifier to the mental skills, which are hidden anyway. But the right jockey can make your horse better in a way where you basically would want to supplement a horse that has some challenge from the mental point of view with a jockey that helps that. But the rock combo could also limit that horse's potential, so you might also want to use the default jockey sometimes. And the option is basically just to not equip a jockey if you ever want to. We got some very nice and detailed questions from Life Jacket, and he's asking, says, I'm a huge horse racing fan. I study form daily. Apologies for the long question. And then he mentions a lot of aspects and whether they'll determine the outcome of the race. Going, some horses are better on wet or softer conditions. Distance, horses are better over certain trips. The type, flat racing or jumps, that's actually flat. Orientation, some are better at running left-handed versus right-handed. Is it straight tracks? No, we actually want to depart from the straight tracks in some other that are offered by some other platforms. Different courses play to different horse strengths. These are all in the question. It was a very detailed question with a lot of details about what impacts the race. So I'll actually explain it in a slightly different way. The way we modeled the racing engine, and I'll let also Nick elaborate a little bit on the technicality. But basically, we're diving a little bit deeper. So instead of basing the results on these external parameters, which you'd see when you watch a race by looking at how long the track is and comparing that performance, the way it works is that the horses actually have the stats that are basically the source of how the horse would perform in any given condition. And the track is a function or a variable which basically will be where the horse will perform. So depending on their stats, the race will evaluate how that horse will perform in that track condition. The mental stats will impact the more dynamic aspects, such as how the horse will react with more horses, how the horse will affect when the race is crowded in certain parts of the race, and so on. So instead of looking at the external elements which you would be able to view when you watch the race, yes, that will be what you look at. But the way it's designed from the ground up is actually the horse stats are what link it to that performance over the track. So the different tracks will have different conditions. So the outcome will be based on the combination of both every participating horse's stats and how it performs on that day. And the track's conditions, and all that together with the dynamic aspect of the different horses participating and how they interact with each other. Nick, maybe you want to add a little bit more about the system part of that.
Yeah, well, basically, I don't want to just repeat what you said, but yeah, there's going to be different physical stats and mental stats that will... Sorry, I just read it. Yes, I do sleep, David King. Yes, and the mental stats will mainly be important to decide how the horse will spend its energy. Will it try to go out of the gate super quickly and lead the pack the whole time? Some people like questions about pacing. That will happen naturally because some of the horses will be more hot-headed than other ones. Some horses will be better like in the pack, will try to drive themselves out of the pack. Some horses will be better when they're behind and being trailed and trailing the whole group, and will feel a challenge of that. So the mental stats just naturally will generate complex behaviors like that. And then the track conditions, we anticipated different, first of all, track, like muddy tracks, hard tracks, and synthetic tracks, but also curves. This will all be taken into account in the simulation, which will be step by step. So during the curve, your horse might behave better if it's got a higher agility, and otherwise your horse, if it's got a lower agility, maybe you might want to try to prioritize like straight tracks and tracks that don't have any difficulty in it, and synthetic tracks and stuff like that. So that will all be in your part about optimizing your races, right? You will have to look at what your horse is good at and try to just get it into the right races.
Yeah, and that's part of the beauty of it, is to actually understand how your horses behave, strategizing around that. It is the game. It is the game. Somebody is asking whether the distance of the track plays a major factor in strategy, and yes, I don't know if I call it a major factor, but it's one of the factors, because horses have stamina and they have energy and they have expenditure, and of course the distance of the track will affect that. So horses that can manage their energy better or have more stamina will obviously do better in a longer track. But again, this is all derived from the core of the horses, which are the stats and how they relate to. This is a question by Raiboto. Hercule asks another question saying, how many races can one horse do in one day? How many races will be organized by the game? Is there a limit? So this is another one of the questions that are largely dependent on the balance of the overall ecosystem. So we need to really find the sweet spot, and this is something we actively want to do. It's not meant to be a platform which is just built once and started and left. It's an online game. Any online game will always have continuous development, balancing, to make sure that the player base is happy with what they have, and to make sure things are running correctly. So this is one of those things. How many races will depend on how many actual horses want to race. If we have too many races, then we have dilution and people waiting too long. Queues will be too long. If we have too few races, then we'll have people always waiting. So we need to strike that sweet spot, and that's a good question. How many races can one horse do in one day? That again is a cap that needs to be also considered. So it's kind of let's say again a balance of what's healthiest for the ecosystem. We'd rather people get to play as much as they want, but there's also again a balance aspect of it. You'd rather also have a level of balance in there. So we have a question from Easy Lalo. This project is broken down between breeding and racing. If you decide to go the route of racing, knowing that only top 3 get prizes, what are the chances of you losing every single race? This is a question, and it's actually a realistic question in one sense, in that it's a game where you play races, and the races has winners and has people that don't win, and if there's an entry fee, then you're gonna pay the entry fee, and if you don't win, you don't get a prize. So it's good to put this into context. This is not a game which is meant to be where you own an NFT and you just generate something from it. It's a recreation of an experience, and there should be a chance for people to know what they're doing and to participate in good races. But obviously, if you put 1 and 1 together, you can't have every single person winning every race. It also means that it's a game of skill. People who spend time and learn about their horses, their strengths, their weaknesses, they pair them with the right jockeys, they'll have a higher chance to win. So it's a game of skill and people competing with each other. But it's also against who you're gonna play against. There's gonna be class systems where horses that are performing very well cannot really participate in lower level races, except with a handicap. So that is meant to balance out the overpowered quote unquote horses from dominating. But there's also the beauty of horse racing, as we always hear from our partner and co-founder Zach, is that any horse can be a star. It's part of the beauty that any horse you ever own or breed can become a star. You can't really know until you race it, and even after you race it, there is always opportunities in classes and different races. Could you go into detail about how the luck, Ada Hoskigot is asking, how the luck element will work? That's already worked out. I would say that the element of luck here, considering the level of simulation and the type of simulation we have, is very similar to the luck you would have in an Olympics event where you have racers pitched against each other. And you have luck where maybe somebody sometimes trips, somebody doesn't have a good day. We're not modeling to the extent of showing everyone the detail of saying your horse had a bad night and was very nervous before the race, so it didn't perform well. But this is exactly what gets translated, and this is what luck is in this kind of, let's say, race. So this is the extent of what luck is. But other than that, there's no, let's say, luck attribute, which just, let's say, makes a horse luckier. Sense. We got a question from UIJA. The play to earn economy model is not easy. There are several projects that were popular, but at some point users were losing money if they play. Did you check the model with an economist to ensure that it is sustainable? I'll answer this question in a slightly different way. So the way we envision Equine is not in the classic play to earn model where you have people grinding their way with certain tasks to get some points and then selling them to somebody else who wants them to expand. We see that in isolation is not a very sustainable, let's say, structure by itself. We'd rather actually see Equine as more of a virtual alternative. You see people talk about the Metaverse, and there's a lot of hype around that. We're not trying to jump into the hype, but we also do believe in a future where a lot of virtual equivalents or alternatives are available. Virtual horse ownership is something that's been around. Some people are promoting it also for the livelihood of real life horses. We also see it as an alternative for people to experience owning a digital racehorse. So it's an equivalent where you get to breed horses, you get to race horses, you get to experience it as a form of entertainment. You get to race your mates, race somebody else, you have some nice competition going on. If you enjoy breeding, you get to define a breeding program of your own, and you participate in the ecosystem, and you fulfill the responsibility of improving the average racehorse in the ecosystem. And that will have its own economy built into it. But the economy for us is not the final state or the target. It's rather a part or element of the whole thing. Of course, a healthy economy will ensure that the game is adopted and that people are enjoying their experience. It's part of it. But it's also not meant to be the core metric. It's one of the elements. Now, what we also see is that NFTs and the blockchain revolutionize ownership of assets, digital assets. And this is part of it. Is like if you own a digital asset like a racehorse or a skin or a jockey, then you can anytime sell it. And if it has some certain value, then you can go and sell that. People have asked a lot about play to earn concepts. Now, we are not committing to that very deeply yet, though we do see some room for that kind of element. People enjoy spending time with and we've heard some very nice ideas of people wanting to spend time with their horses, petting them, doing chores. Some people don't like that aspect of owning a racehorse or a horse and the daily chores, but some people do. And we feel that there's room for that kind of, let's say, system, but we are not yet committing to the full details of that. So that could be, for example, something later down the road where people get to do, as you mentioned earlier, a kind of a more standard play to earn. We lost Nick and I'm in the middle of a border. I hope you guys don't mind that, and I hope Nick's come back. But yeah, basically that's the whole part of it. The play to earn concept could be envisioned in a way where people, for example, participate in quests or daily tasks and weekly stuff. And the racers and breeders would also be part of that, and then they could, for example, redeem some exclusive NFTs which are only available on Equine. You could, for example, look at things like here I'm just talking vision, I'm not talking commitment yet, because while we see that as a potential, we'd rather also not overcommit and compromise our core deliverable. But there is a vision which includes that kind of aspect. We hope to achieve something that maintains the balance between the core players who like to race and breed, but also have something for people who'd like to contribute to the ecosystem by playing often, by enjoying the content of the game, the storyline, the lore behind it, and the available events once we have them. That's just, let's say, the direction. So that's a good question. We have life jacket. Again, asking some good questions here. Also, will horses get better stats with age and peak before returning? Will their stats be affected by the races they run in? Will the horses start somewhat unknown? And yes, the answer is yes, because that's how it is in real life. When you own a racehorse, especially when it's a young, let's say, yearling or so, you wouldn't know for sure exactly how the horse would perform. And sometimes even after the year or the second year, you will start seeing that. But there's late bloomers who take a few years until they show. He's saying again, for example, real life, a group 1 horse starts in a maiden novice race with younger horses. It doesn't just start winning group 1s. Yes, that's the vision we're looking at. We're drawing a lot of parallels with the existing industry because it's successful in its way as an industry. To an extent, it has been sustainable to an extent, so we don't need to reinvent the wheel in that aspect. So we are drawing a lot of parallels there, and we're learning a lot from it. Or will it be more like FIFA, when you pull a horse with great stats that's ready to just start? No, and that's why we made the aging something that grows with age. So that's basically a question. We will have also classes, which will also make it fair for the higher performing horses to only compete with those at their level, unless they have a handicap, and that's also another element. Okay. Next batch of questions we have, we're almost, I think, actually about halfway there. Horses and jockeys. So we know our horse will have a lifespan, however, the game not playable for a good while. Will our horses die 18 months after mint? No. So the pioneers also have a perk where you can... It's a perk and also a design requirement because we're selling them before the platform is up. So we felt it's not fair that we start aging them neither now, nor when we have the platform up, because maybe somebody's not ready to start playing yet. We'd rather they're not penalized and not able to, by having their horse age and them not being able to address them. So instead we decided that all the pioneer horses will always be able to activate their horses when they want to. After they activate, you can't really pause them. The aging will continue until the horse passes. But the activation is something you do when the platform is up, and it's basically your choice as a pioneer horse owner. Every owner can activate any horses they want and leave any that they don't want. Can your horse be shelved to save life? No, it's just the activation option whenever you want to. And if you re-roll, after the horse passes away and you decide to use the token to mint a new one for the 20A that we mentioned, then you also get to choose when do you want to re-roll. You can choose not to re-roll and just keep that token and never redeem it. You could pass it on to someone who instead wants a pioneer horse and sell it at whatever price you want to, and then they can instead spend the 20 ADA and mint a random new horse. That's part of the flexibility we would love to offer all the Pioneer Collection horse owners. When a Pioneer horse ages and passes, will the holder be given a replacement Pioneer of the same sex? This was a question by Troy Horngang, Aaron BG Troy Horngang. This is important for breeding purpose. So I've seen a question a few times, Troy, on the Discord as well. The reason we see the random, let's say, reroll is it introduces a whole dynamic of also people getting a different horse from genetics maybe they did not expect, or something they did not enjoy. They have also a chance of getting something completely different. It also breathes a little bit of fresh air into the available horses because they're constantly, let's say, changing. But then the way this is done is through DNA. Every horse will have their own DNA, unique DNA, which will basically translate the horse's specifications, the color, the visuals, the stats, and everything. Part of that is the gender. So when we do a random DNA, that's going to have a different gender. It's going to be a random gender. Though, on the other hand, you might want to think of it in another way. This is not a system where whatever you mint will be locked to your account. So if you happen to end up minting 2 males and 2 females, you might also figure out down the road, just as an example, you might figure out that you'd rather have more mares than stallions. You might want to have mares with a certain stat build. You might be focused more on stamina strong horses or more speed-based horses. And basically your specialty as a breeder to decide what you'd like to specialize in, if you want to specialize in a certain stat. And if you want to do that, you might not want to depend on the random horses you minted, but because they're NFTs, then you can actually go and trade. You can sell your horses that you own at a certain rate. You can go and buy and pick horses that are more suitable to your program. It's part of the beauty of this ownership concept, is that you can do whatever you want with them. So the same way, if you re-roll and you get different genders, you can go and trade them for what you feel is best for you. That's the direction for it. If you buy 2 bundles, one's a mare and one's a stallion / gelding, can you make them? If it's a gelding, no, obviously. They'll be stallions by default. We got a suggestion to be able to actually neuter stallions if you don't want to breed them as a one-way option to slightly have a chance to improve their performance. We're considering that. But to answer the question is, you can do breeding in-house between your own mare and stallions. Keep in mind, once they move to breeding, you can't race them anymore, obviously. If you only have one horse, you still have options. So if you have a mare, you can go and get a stallion to cover with stud service. You're gonna have to pay the stallion owner for that, obviously. If you own a stallion, you can't keep the offspring, but you can offer them for stud service. And then basically, if you're getting paid for the stud, you can go and buy a horse if you'd like to. You can go and buy a mare for future breeding. So that's kind of the level. Payment and costs, people are asking these a lot, and I will answer this after I go through these questions, if you don't mind. It's a bit more of an elaborate answer. Just to give this question, I think it's fair attention. How long can a stud mate? We got this from Precious Roy. How long can a stud mate and how many times? Yeah, you can't breed from a gelding, that's what I said. Is it 1 horse year? 1 month? So it basically depends again on the game balance, but we'd like to set it at 5 stud covers per month, per stallion, per real-time month is what I'm saying. We know in real life it's a bit more for the strong stallions. They can do up to 100 in real life, but over there's a little bit more of a different dynamic, and there's shuttling, and there's seasons and continents, and we need to also consider the impact of having that. So we think of 5 max per month per 1 horse year is reasonable, but we're ready also to adjust if the game balance requires a little bit of an adjustment. Warmish Comment asks, can we rent out our horses, jockeys and skins? So we're not planning it as an initial idea, but basically smart contracts allow this. So if there's value in this quality of life option, then we can always consider this. Riboto PRC is asking, could there be a system where I have a friend race one of my horses for me? That's the same concept of renting. So that's basically a smart contract option, and it would be a quality of life addition if we ever have that. Okay, this is a bit of a big question. Maybe Marek, if you want to go through the plans and roadmap part, and I'll also chime in if there's something to add.
Sure. Let me jump to it. So we have the question from Bijaya. Actually, it's 5 questions, so let me try to address one by one, and you can definitely jump in if needed. So first is, what stage is the game development in? So, well, we have the assets, right? So the NFTs, because that's the priority for to prepare for the sale. We want to sell want to offer you the NFTs that are ready and finished. But we also have a working prototype of racing and breeding engine. This is the engine behind the scenes, right? This is the engine that does the calculations, that provides the outcomes for the races and for the breeding. We do not have the visualization at this point that we could share, which is part of the second question here, because this is something that will come in the next steps. However, also we do believe that the pure part of the visualization of the race, while of course we want to make sure it has the same level of quality that we want our NFTs to be and our whole project to be, we do believe it will be a relatively simpler, because there is not really much of an interactive element. It's more you watch the race, you can change cameras, you can turn off and turn on the skins, but that's about it at this stage. Of course, who knows, in the future, once the game is ready and we have, resources, time more, that's the main resource right now that we need, we can introduce some cool stuff. We had people asking about adding a VR option where you could basically jump into your Jockey skin and see the race from the first person perspective in VR, which would be pretty amazing, but it's not the priority. What are the long-term goals of the project, say,
Marek,
for 5 years from now?
If you don't mind me jumping in, just because it's relevant here. So for these questions about the development and the stage, I think a big part of this question is actually meant just to maybe clarify a little bit on our confidence and technical ability basically to deliver. I think a best answer, if you don't mind, Nick, if you can just give us a little bit of background about your technical, let's say, development abilities and experience.
Yeah, sure. I'm a physicist, so I did master's and PhD in physics, so seven years of research. Most of it was in simulation in physics, so a lot of programming with the research. And then I went on to become a scientific software dev for 8 years now. Currently unrelated, but working like computational biochemistry. So this is like my bread and butter, working with math and simulation and programming. And this is bottom line, right? Horse racing is a physics simulation that's not super hard if you depending on the level of simplification that you're taking. So when they're talking about prototypes, what I did is I did an easy way to generate random horses and then race them together, like with no graphics, right? only in calculation, to get the outcome of the race. And what that gives you that's super interesting is that you can do millions of races super quickly, so that you can determine if the worst horse can beat the best horse, even if it's like once in a million. And you can get statistics that you would probably never get through playing Equine, because you need millions of races to be able to really delve deep into more unlikely events. But we want the game balance to be based on big statistics like that, and to be sure that we can do that properly when we rebalance the game stats. You have to be able to do the worst horse, the best horse, random horses, just have them race together in a bunch of different conditions for millions of races and see how that comes out. And same thing for breeding. Basically, when I made up the DNA, then I made a breeding scheme which just takes the genes and mixes them up in the same way that it happens in real life. So you get random genes from each pair of your parents, and then you make up a new horse. And what we wanted to see with that you can still do with no graphics and with millions of simulation, is we wanted to see how quickly you would reach the Uber horse, right? If you had hundreds of horses and you could do millions of offsprings and always take the best and then made those together, which is weird, but you keep doing that over and over again. How many generations of like perfect breeding does it take to get the ultimate horse? And those kind of things are very important to keep the game balance stable over years. And that's the kind of thing we've been building already. But a lot of that is still subject to change, right? But that's the tools that we've built so that we can keep going forward and keep adjusting the balance as we change little game elements, and we think, okay, that might be funnier with like we're gonna need an extra stat because the agility needs to come in because people want cornering, and it's sad if all tracks are straight. So then we adjust to things, but that's basically the tools we're relying on to make sure that the game doesn't break, and we don't have 8 horses in a race all break the world record for speed, right? Like what happened in other games.
Yeah, I think I don't want to dwell even longer on this part of the question, but just because it's a good chance to speak about this. So it's the formation of the team for Equine, even though a part of it was coincidental, as in we were friends in the NFT space, but we think that we have a very, let's say, great list of skill sets across the table, which is perfect for executing a project like this. Nick has been a savior. He's one of those guys who, whenever, as any good dev would do, whenever you ask them, can you do something, they would usually say, yes, it's easy. And that's somebody who knows how to do stuff. And that means that we are very ambitious, but also realistic. So I think we can go to step 3. What's the long-term goal of the project?
Yeah, actually, I will skip from this, skip through step 3, but maybe step 5, Nick, you can answer. I know you answered in the chat, but there's a question there. What is the size of the development team? So we have it on the video. Nick, are you, or should I answer? I can answer.
I really thought Fahad was going to answer that. Sorry.
Basically, go ahead. Sorry.
Basically, we already have. We're looking at a team of 2 guys that I've worked with that are super smart and really experienced in high traffic, high number of request websites, and so to build the dApps, so the front end and the back end, and most of the I'll be the blockchain specialist, so everything that has to do with smart contracts and the dApp connector and Plutus application backend, I'm going to be a specialist for that part of it, and I'm going to be able to keep all of those aspects really tight, make sure it's all
do you know about blockchain, Nick? You're a physicist.
I know a bit about the blockchain. You can ask around. I've even minted my own NFTs. Yeah.
I think it's worth mentioning you're a Plutus pioneer first cohort. So
I'm a Plutus pioneer. And I've been vending for multiple projects, tens of thousands of assets, and me and a few of the devs you've heard about, like Stale Dean and a lot of them, we talk and we exchange tips and everything, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get one of them to curate the smart contract or audit it. I'm gonna look into the audit mechanics, but we're gonna make sure everything is super straight, and we've got third parties that can examine the validity of everything, and I've got pretty good ideas for the randomness also of the races to be truly random and have even human input into it. So yeah, that's the size of the team.
If I'll add to this, if the intention of the question was development in the more general sense, so if that includes both the art asset creation, the game design, and all of that, it's pretty much larger. So there's number one, there's the 4 co-founders, 3 of us on the screen and Zach, and then you have the whole creative team. And at its peak, which is now, we had 2 concept artists, 8 3D artists and modelers. Shout out to Lucas Farias, who's with us in the chat now, cheering us. He's our lead 3D artist. We have a 3D animator / rigger handling the animation export part. We have a music composer who's made the original soundtrack, and that's Finnegan. We have I forgotten anyone? I'm sure I have. So we have Odon, the renowned Odon, who created Quinn, our mascot. So there's quite a large team who's contributed to making the Pioneer collection. Now we also see that there's value in being a bit agile and lean. So in this stage, we've created a lot of art assets which are already game ready to an extent, subject to some optimization. But now the next stage of developing the platform, we will not need that much artistic input. So we'll have to scale down the art team for a period and scale up the developers team. So it's kind of that approach. But yes, we did have this kind of team there. And David King's saying, if you want to see more of Faha, Fence, and Marek, you can join us in the Faha 100. That's a very separate promotion
suggestion.
Yes.
Yeah, the next one, which I really like that question. We got it from two people, so both from Bijaya and from Bullish Alex, which is, what's the vision for the, let's say, next 3 to 5 years? What's the end game, right? And I think the main thing that we want to say is that we definitely see Equine being still there in 5 years, and if anything, being bigger and being broader. Like, our goal would be, or in the ideal world, we would like Equine to go outside of what is now the fans of Cardano NFTs, fans of NFTs in general, and become a fun activity that people who are excited about races cannot maybe afford or don't have the other means to own a horse, be able to own the horse, play with the horse, I would love my dad to be able to do stuff like that, right? To go to that level where that becomes more of a mainstream thing, because we are very niche, right? We are very early. We are starting. It's all new, exciting, but also scary. Like, whenever I talk to people outside of NFT, it's very hard to find someone who understands this, and we hope that projects like ours can really make this use case of NFT as an ownership a better use case, right? So we hope we'll grow. Of course, we have the first goal. We want to launch a game, breeding and racing, as soon as we can next year. But we will be adding, we will be changing and making it more exciting, because we know that people want new stuff and want exciting things.
And,
I don't know, Fahad, if you want to add anything.
Yes, please. So, where do we see Equine 5 years from now? We learned from experience. We're also gamers, at different levels of gaming, but most of us, I would say all of us, have been gaming for tens of years. I'm talking at least about the founders team, at least myself, Nick and Marek. I'm not sure how long Zach has been gaming, if at all. But this gives us also a bit of perspective of what makes a good game, number one, but also tells us something else, is online games and especially massively multiplayer online games can live for decades. Like, look at World of Warcraft, it's just one example, then you can look at others. And one of the secrets to that is that there's continuous development and balancing. There's different peaks and periods where there's highs and lows, but generally speaking, it's something that's here to stay. And the way we approach Equine is we don't want to see it as an NFT that has some game function just to sell the NFT. That's not what we see it as. It's rather the other way around. We'd like to bring a game that uses NFTs in the way they're meant to be used. So that's using that utility. But you noticed in a lot of our branding, in a lot of our concepts, that number one, we're following traditional gaming, let's say, standards and the workflow. We create concept art, we create 3D models, we're making game-ready assets and stuff like that. It's because we intend to make something that lives on. That's one. Number two is you notice that we are not trying to cater explicitly for only the Cardano community or only the blockchain or crypto or NFT community. Number one, we are extremely grateful to that community. We are part of it. But we are not basically creating all our characters based on famous names in crypto or models or put logos of certain cryptocurrencies. The reason for that is just because we feel that the project needs to be much broader. The audience needs to be broad. We appreciate what we have here in this community and scene, and we are a part of it. But we feel that if we want to cater also to mainstream audiences, we will need to also have, let's say, a little bit more of a widely, let's say, appreciated style and aesthetic. So this, I think, also answered a little bit. So where do we see it 3-5 years from now? We hope that it's longer than that, and we hope that it's much longer than that. We hope that Equine becomes a brand name that's known to people and something that's analogous to digital horse ownership. We look forward to achieving a part of that dream.
Yeah, sounds awesome, and I think that's also what some people are telling us, that the horse racing, although we know from Zach that obviously the breeders and racers, they absolutely love horses, but there are still people who have some reservation for the use of live horses in racing. That is completely eliminated when we go to digital horse racing, right?
Yeah.
The next one, the last one question from Vijaya is about, are we going to use a native token or ADA in the game? So we are discussing with our legal team, and based on the discussion and our preference as well is to use ADA. So basically the fees would be in ADA, the payout will be in ADA. We did mention that if when in the future we'll look at the play to earn elements, that could be a good reason to introduce a token that will be native and only used for the exchange. Like we wouldn't really want to tie it, like we wouldn't want to sell it like some other project do to fund the project, right? That's not necessary at this stage. So it will be ADA. Another good question that we got from Raiboto is about, do you have a strategy for creating long-term sustainability and growth? And I think we covered that part. But there's also a question, could you see Equine transitioning to become more decentralized and sometime in the future? Like a governance or something like that. So in a short answer is that we will definitely listen to community as we develop and when we are looking for direction, like choosing directions or choosing what to add and what to evolve. We've been listening, we've been very active on Discord for those who've been there. I think it's quite obvious that we try to be there every day answering questions and discussion, being open to discussions on all ends, yeah. Right? Even people who disagree with our statements or our ideas, we want this discussion because it helps us get better and make our vision better. However, at the same time, large part of Equine as a game will have to remain private, right? Like if the DNA or the race engine would be publicly available, that would take away a lot of fun from the game, a lot of mystery and a lot of enjoyment. So we don't see it going fully open source at any stage, at least for now. Who knows what crypto will be in 5 years? Maybe there will be some ways to do it, but we'll definitely will be listening to the community.
Yeah.
We are almost there with questions. I also note a couple of questions from the chat that I think we didn't answer, so we will definitely continue there. But very quickly, there's a big question from Pac, but I'll make it very short and say the question is, will there be scholarships like they exist, for example, in the Axie Infinity? Given, as we explained, that our game design is somewhat different from those typical play-to-earn games like Axie, we don't really have plans for it. But it's not something we say no to if there is a reason and a way to do it. But it's not the current priority.
I'd say it's more attached to the play-to-earn mechanics. So if whenever we add let's say a daily quests kind of element or some campaign mode where people go and earn tokens and stuff, that could fit in where something similar to scholarships would work. But also looking at guilds and communities, that still does have a place where, for example, I've already heard from some friends who've been strong supporters have mentioned to me, for example, that they, as a group of friends, have decided to pull together and to put together, let's say, a collaboration stable where they all want to have all of their horses in, let's say, common cooperation, where they want to offer each other their breeding services and racing, and they're analyzed together. So there's always room for that. There's people who will do their analytics together. There's people who want to align on breeding, racing. So this is a nature of competitive, I'll say, games. So teams are expected to be formed. Groups or guilds or stables are expected to be formed, but this would be autonomous. If we see some clear structure where that can fit also into the game platform, then we'd love to have that. Something that's basically can allow the guilds or the stables to basically display their alliance. This is a fun part, and it can definitely be considered.
Thanks. Then the next one, yet another great question from Life Jacket. And I will simplify it again, but the question is, are we planning to do any kind of festivals or big races and cups? And the quick answer is yes, definitely. I think it's very exciting to have a bigger event where horses can race towards one big win. We can start with doing something ourselves, right? But ideally, when we grow enough to get the traction, it would be awesome if we could collaborate with one of the real live events and do a cup, do a digital or digital cup while they do the real life one. So it's definitely in our plan and in our ambition to do it.
Yeah.
Then we have two questions about our dear Queen.
Let's handle first some questions about betting, which are under that. I think we explained a little bit.
Okay, if you want, you can.
Yeah. So gambling or betting, we understand, is a major part of the industry, of the real industry, which we draw some parallels of. But we also would not like to get into that aspect. So whether that becomes a separate venture or a third party, or otherwise, it will not be a direct, let's say, extension of the Equine platform. We acknowledge its existence. We acknowledge it's a part of the whole, let's say, scene. But if it does happen, it will be sometime a little bit later, and would not be by Equine NFT group itself. That's one. There's a subject I want to answer, which has been mentioned a few times, about the costs. Okay, and I want to clear this up. I'd like people to talk about it, to spread this if they want to, because it's what we are offering, and what we want to be very straightforward about is, what does the whole ecosystem look like, and what are the costs involved? It's a common question. It's a very fair question, and I understand anybody would want to basically know what they're getting into before they get into it. And there've been some people bringing up a subject of bundles being sold and forced quote-unquote subscriptions, which is inaccurate. It's rather a subject of the utility of the horses and how long you can use them, etc. So let's talk about costs. So the main activities in the game are basically the racing and the breeding. And then the way we structure the payment or the costs involved, it's basically linked to the outcome or the output you get out of what you put in. Okay, so if there's a race that has a prize pool or reward fee of X amount of ADA, for example, then that would naturally need to come from a source, which is the entry fees. And this is normal in any race or competition where there's a prize pool of all the participants. So if you enter a race, then we already mentioned earlier, a 90% cut of the whole prize pool would be distributed against the top 3 placers. So that's kind of price aspect. How much would it be then? Obviously, races would have different levels, and we can basically easily structure it in a way where different races can have different payouts, and then the entry fees would correspond to the payouts. Sorry. Okay, so that's one part, which is racing, and it's always tied to what you get out of it. If it's a race with a high payout, then it could have a higher entry fee. Some of the larger, let's say if we have sponsored races that have a prize pool from somewhere else and it's a big event, then that could have a different price structure and the cost of entry, but that's basically how it kind of works out. In addition, we also want to host some free races which are free to enter and have prizes. Obviously, those will be very busy. People always want to get into them because they're a good chance to win something and they don't cost. But those will be spread out. They can't really be as common as the paid entries ones. That's one. Breeding. Now, what do you get out of breeding 2 horses? You're gonna get a new horse, and that horse is, I would say, subjectively, probably, I would say, better than a random horse in one way, that there's predictability. a horse you get from breeding is something you kind of can predict the outcome of, not entirely, but you have some control. And that process helps in the betterment of horses. So you'll always get better horses from breeding. Okay, so what's the value you get out of breeding 2 horses? You're gonna get a whole horse NFT, which you can sell, which you can basically put in a market and has value in it, right? So obviously, to get that, you need to also pay a certain fee because there's a cost related to the element, and because that's a balance. Imagine if there was no fee to breeding and every single horse owner went and bred infinite amounts of horses. They wouldn't have the value. That would actually affect the whole ecosystem. So we're not thinking of matching that value with like the breeders to basically have their own room to expand the ecosystem and to also sell and get something out of that. But it also wouldn't be something that's complementary, because then that would also open a whole different challenge with regards to ecosystem balance and values of horses and stuff like that. So we hope that you guys trust us in basically balancing the kind of ecosystem. We want to be as fair as possible. We are looking also to make sure that everything is basically reasonable in that way, where we have a chance to maintain and develop the system and the platforms. There's always an ongoing cost of maintenance and development and balance. But then basically they also want the players to have a good experience and also to get something out of the whole experience. So I hope you guys understand it's a bit of a challenging, let's say, balance to maintain. But for sure, a part of it is gonna need to have fees. Please be reasonable in your expectations. We can't really put a platform up where all the users are generating something against nothing. It just doesn't work that way. It's if you want it to live on and be sustainable, then there has to be this kind of balance between the two sides. So this is a general, let's say, expectation. I hope it kind of answers the idea. Do you guys foresee any legal issues within the US, especially for race winners earning a portion of the entry fee? This is something we want to clear up, but basically the way we see it is it's a competition. It should not be any different. It's not winning a portion of the entry fee. It's a prize pool, and we'd announce it in advance. So we wouldn't make it subject to how many people enter. It's gonna be a prize pool that's defined. And then look at any video game tournament that's in the States, just as an example. And I'm not a lawyer, and this is not legal advice, nor something that I have gotten, let's say, final advice on. But it's the vision we will strive for, and it's what we want to get cleared off, because anything else wouldn't really work well for anyone. But basically the idea is that if you enter a tournament and you pay a prize, let's say an entry fee, and there's a prize reward for the winners, then that usually is a normal competition, as long as it's a game of skill. And we believe this is very clearly a game of skill, considering the amount of decision making you need to do, the amount of analysis you need to do, etc. So we're kind of far away from any alternative, let's say, explanation of how the game works. This is my understanding. I hope this kind of clarifies. This is a general idea. There were some fun questions, Mark, you wanted to bring up.
Yeah, so the last one from the Discord is just the question about Queen. We got two. One was the role of Queen, and second is why we don't see Queen much anymore. And the quick answer is that Queen is our mascot and is definitely going to play a bigger role. I think we got very busy with the NFT creation, and he kind of was waiting for his time. We are also waiting for more versions of Queen to share with you guys. So we know Odon is a very, very busy guy, but we are getting more. And I think even if you saw our announcement for this, we already shared a little bit. But yes, we hope to do more with Queen. We maybe definitely make him somehow a little bit part of the game. Maybe explaining the tutorial. Maybe having some NFT. Maybe in the future, when we have a moment to look at this, also some merch. Because that was one of the questions, can we have some Equine merch? So Queen obviously is a natural choice for that, but yes, we want to bring Queen back. There is another question I caught from the live chat, which I don't know if Nick, if you had a chance to answer it or not, but basically Ed asked, like, Cardano is not renowned for making rapid progress. Are you optimistic that everything will be in place for a successful game launch in Q3 next year?
Yeah, I did answer that in the chat. Basically, what I said is Cardano is nearly ready, and Pluto's application backend and app connectors are really coming. They're in beta right now, and I'm very confident in Q3 we can get a nice game experience. And then a lot of the app, a lot of what you'll be doing is a web app, and it's going to be done in the front end and back end of our app. And then blockchain interaction is just entering races, getting your results out, actual breeding. Like, you're not going to be clogging the blockchain with interactions through the smart contract, because it's going to be spread throughout the day, throughout time zones, throughout everybody just joining races. And if we do end up like clogging the blockchain with that, well, that's a very good sign. But also the blockchain is just evolving, and it's not evolving quickly because they were building it right. But 2022 has been hailed by Charles as the year of optimization, and there's going to be a lot of speed optimization and a lot of good things coming. So yeah, Q3 sounds very good for an initial launch that will work correctly. And if we get extreme volumes, then we will see, but we'll grow with Cardano, right? I know Cardano will grow up to meet the requirements we have for the game.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think a good answer. I mean, if you think about it in a very isolated way, so the main blockchain interaction is gonna be the smart contracts which you'll enter for racing and breeding, and then the rest of it is partly our dApp, which handles all the interfaces and the gameplay. So we will develop that part anyway. We already have the game assets for the characters and the horses and the designs for those. So those are already in place. So it's mainly the interfaces, the content, the storylines, the tutorials, things like that, and the smart contracts. We got a question from Ed again about the fee for breeding, and whether the stud or stallion owner fees, will we get a percentage of that? No, the way it would be constructed is, number one, there's let's say a portion which is a breeding fee, and then that's what gets paid even by the stable owner who has both the male and the female. And then if somebody's hiring a stud, then they also pay the stud fee. So it's not really a percentage of that, it's rather the cost of just doing the breeding. That's a question. Do you plan to have any activities for the horse owners before the game drops? Yeah, depends on what you mean by activities, but of course we will keep, number one, we'll keep providing updates on the development. Number two, we'd love to create more content, we'd love to create more stuff. We'd like to also, we need to have definitely some testing, including the owners of the horses. And I don't want to really promise much yet, but anyone who knows us will know us, we have high ambitions. So we have a lot of, let's say, things we'd love to work on during that period, and to build more content and concepts to also include. But it's a balance, because we also need to make sure that we develop in time. Ballpark figure for breeding fees. I would say it really depends on how. Okay, there's a catch to defining this or deciding this, especially this early. Okay, but I'll tell you where the thinking is. Okay, so the outcome of breeding is a horse. Okay, NFT, and basically the delta between the breeding fee and the cost or value of a horse is basically what drives people to breed or not, usually, unless it's for their own horse usage. So if horses cost 50 ADA in the market, then if the breeding cost is 50 ADA, then nobody would breed. If the horse value in the market is 150 ADA, then even for 50 ADA fee, it's worth paying and getting a horse that's valued 150 ADA. These are just general examples of how it would work out. We thought that one of the more, let's say, and at the same time, we don't want to enter into, let's say, a situation where we have to actively monitor and adjust prices, and we really don't want to be people who affect the market. So that's the other thing. So we're thinking of a mechanical way where the breeding fee actually kind of balances out with the value of horses. That could be a ramping kind of fee where, say for example, the first 200 horses bred during the month will cost this much breeding fee, and then it becomes Y, and then it becomes Z. And basically, sorry for mentioning a competitor's name, I meant the letter Z. So basically it depends on how that works out, because then if the basic horse costs 200 ADA, then the breeding fees will still be worth breeding until it hits that kind of range. Then people will kind of consider whether they should. And we also want to basically promote breeders to always look into quality breeding instead of just multiplying. Because if people just multiply and breed any two horses, then the overall population will never improve. And that's not really healthy breeding direction for the whole ecosystem. You'd want horses. Of course, there'll be a difference in skill of breeders. Some will be better breeders than others, and it will show in their races. But basically, a good breeder will always improve the population. And then part of that is also encouraged by there being, let's say, a careful assessment. Now, we don't want to take all the value away from all breeders, and that's not the intention. It's more like a balance mechanism. So that's the kind of the consideration. I think that's a good question. A lot of questions that came in early, I think, are by people who we might have lost across the length of the session. But if anyone does have questions now, we're happy to also look at the questions that haven't been answered or that are still open. And no, Nick is not side chatting to me. I'm looking at your chat, guys. No problem, Ed. Okay, so I'm not seeing. I'll be out on field work 24 hours during mint. I'm so happy I can mint with you, Roy. Yeah, we're happy that this concept brings value to people.
Yeah, and I really love what Bakfast said in the chat, and I'm definitely going to steal it, that, you know, what we are trying to do is focus on inclusivity instead of exclusivity, right? It's a game, it's meant to be played, it's meant to be enjoyed by people, but at the same time, we are now very early, right? By the time the game launches, we hope to have many more people excited about trying to play Equine, but at the time there will be no more pioneers to be sold from us, right? That will be all secondary market or new horses that are bred in the system after a few months. So we do believe that, we of course cannot guarantee value generation because that's not how it works, but we do believe that people who support us will see that value over time, both from the game and from the assets being actually still rare and unique in a future perspective. Yes, maybe not a week after sale, right? Because we are offering the supply to meet the demand, but over time that demand should grow. And we'll be working very hard to make that demand grow and create the excitement, and we have a means and connections to make that happen.
Definitely, for sure. CNFT Gaming is asking, will the skins have duplicates? Yes. And that's by nature of how the art is created. So, again, I draw a comparison, and I know that we are, number one, appreciating NFTs for their ability to provide unique and to ownership of unique, let's say, elements. So the horses will be unique in their sense that they have their own DNA and stats. But the fact that NFTs allow us to own things that are unique doesn't necessarily mean that every NFT needs to have the same art. And for some profile picture art, for example, that makes sense. But it doesn't have to be that way. So when you try to go for a higher quality level of production, so for example, if you look at our skeleton horse, just an example, you can't really make that level of detail into unique, excuse me, one-of-one NFTs for every single design. It's really out of the picture. We could, if we wanted to do a simple, let's say, low time cost addition to make it unique, we could definitely do that. Does it bring value? Not really sure. I mean, we could, for example, put a pedestal under every skin and make each pedestal a single different shade of color. So one is extremely light pink and one is slightly darker pink, and then we say they're all unique. But does that really bring value to that skin just by giving it a different, let's say, platform color or a background or whatever? So in that sense, there will be duplicates. The jockeys as well will also have a lot of duplicates. There's gonna be, in terms of duplicates, I say in terms of art or the type of the NFT. But then the serial number will always be different, so it's unique, it's non-fungible in the sense that you can track the value of every single numbered one, and you'll own it separately from all the others. So that's... Hi Jenny, thank you for joining. I know Pioneers, Troy is asking, I know Pioneers will be a one-time drop. Do you foresee future Bloodline drops? Well, our answer has always been, and we still have the same view, where our preference is to see the breeders meet all the upcoming demand. And if breeders are able to meet the demand that comes, then we don't foresee a reason to drop more horses. If we see a scenario of, say, for example, we have 100,000 new users who want to come and join Equine, and we have a throughput of, say, 1,000 horses bred every month, then that's a situation of severe undersupply. I'm just putting a hypothetical what-if scenario. Then if that happens, I think it's everyone's benefit that we drop some horses for sale, just because of that huge imbalance. Do we want to go in and compete with the breeders and sell horses just to meet that normal demand? No, that's not something we want to do. We don't plan to do that. We might, for example, one day later down the line, we do a different type of racing, or a different type of competition, and then that might need a different class of horses. That would be an expansion kind of project, but not a thoroughbred drop. No problem. There's another question from CNFT Gaming saying, do you see people using the NFTs in other metaverses? It's part of our vision. It's part of our vision. We would love to have support of our horses and jockeys and skins in other metaverses. Our models are already in 3D and they're already in game ready kind of asset optimization. So the only thing that would basically be required is, number one, if it's a formal agreement, then that agreement happening in place. Number two, coordination for support. And we also would love to see, as our vision, it's not something that we guarantee delivery on immediately, but it's part of our vision to also always consider the value of NFTs bringing interoperability between different NFT series. So that should be something that's possible from the technology side. And also from the, let's say, direction side, it's something we all, let's say, believe in, but it all also requires the correct structures to be in place.
Pavia did mention that there could be a space on their stadium to do races there, so let's see how they develop, and maybe that could be an option.
We're more than happy, and we've already touched base.
Absolutely.
We've touched base with different projects who are promising to bring metaverse experiences, and we'd love to be a part of that. There is a question from begging for Wi-Fi. Would you consider doing limited drops of horses for special occasions? Horsing World or Christmas or Halloween? Yes, and that would be best met in the form of jockeys and skins, not horses, because the horses are what they are, and the road forward for them is kind of clear with the horses we have and the breeding. But then the skins and the jockeys are more of a collectible element which can have seasonality. So the Pioneer Collection will always be the Pioneer Collection, and it will be exclusive in that sense. But then there's always room for future skins and limited availability NFTs for skins and jockeys and thoughts like that. Tyler has a good question with Spaces. Good question with how do you guys plan on keeping the project funded long term? will it just be the 10% from entry fees? So we mentioned the entry fees is one element for funding and continuous development. We mentioned, for example, the pioneer rerolls as one thing, which are the 20 ADA for anybody who would like to continue using new horses on the platform. We mentioned the breeding fees as an example, as something that would sustain development. If we ever have a chance to also get, for example, sponsorship partners, major sponsors who would work well and meet us in terms of or be compatible in terms of values, then we could also, for example, have places on our racetracks which have sponsored advertisements and collaborations and partnerships, and there's lots of room there to grow, really. If we do seasonal events and sales and stuff like that, those also have some room for the development and the continuous development. It's a good question, and it's realistic, because any project that's offering like an open blank check of unlimited infinite value probably is a bit unrealistic. Mark, sorry, please go ahead.
Yeah. The only thing I wanted to add, just for the openness, we mentioned that in the last interview that we also decided to put 2.5% royalties on the secondary sales of our NFTs. So that would also be a part of.
Yes, it's part of the royalty structure that we have in Cardano NFTs, which is implemented by some marketplaces now. We also hope to have our own marketplace for equines, not a general one, but one that will be for the equine NFTs. And we hope to, let's say, have something with very low or virtually non-existent or very low, let's say, system fees or service fees on the marketplace to kind of offset the royalties element. So if you use our marketplace, you're basically paying the same as if you were using a different marketplace with service fees. So it kind of balances out that way.
We have another question. I forgot to mention that we had it on our list from Raul. Will we have horse types such as Nakamoto and Buterin? That's from one of the other games. So the answer is no. All our horses are the thoroughbred horses, and the way we differentiate them is through the stats. Of course, also colors as well. But I think, and that's my educated guess, the reason why that needs to have those different bloodlines is because they need to tell people that some horses might be a bit better than others without disclosing much information about the horse itself. And we don't feel like that's needed. We wanted to keep it also realistic, right? So yes, we have a skin for all the fun stuff, but we wanted to keep horse racing to the actual thoroughbred horses.
Yeah, there's a lot of good questions coming in now, actually. Is it possible for a user to have more horse skins than horses, hence user being able to choose from a range of skins for one horse? Yes, definitely. And that's part of it. Like, some people will enjoy collecting skins. Some other people don't care about skins and would love to sell their skins and instead buy horses. And we'd like to cater to all these things. So skins might have more value in a metaverse where you can show off your exclusive appearance, your very limited NFTs. But they would not have the functional utility that some people would prefer to have. Clint is asking, do you ever anticipate a partnership with a casino with gambling capabilities? We answered part of this in the gambling aspect, where we are not directly handling that activity. We'll always consider different partnerships depending on the potential. Yes.
I'm sorry, I have an appointment now. Since it's 11, I have to go.
No problem.
I'm gonna wreck your little golden patterns across the videos.
Can you make the screen black and mute yourself? Let's see. Okay, now my pattern is saved. We'll be wrapping up soon anyway. We're almost, I think, out of questions.
You're now looking at the back of my monitor. Good luck.
It looks very good.
It was nice seeing you guys. Great to get the questions and everything. Should put my face back on to say this. Love you guys. It was really nice meeting you all. Sorry I have an appointment in real life catching up to me. Yeah, have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Nick, for being with us. Yeah. So yeah, like, for example, user has 5 horses, has 15 horse skins, has choices available to choose skins. Yes, for every single race you enter, you should be able to change your skin applied to the horse. So it's just a choice in the interface, and you get to see that. My last question from CNFT Gaming is the ETS timeline for the first utility of the horses. That's the platform launch, which is the 3rd quarter of 2022. So we hope to have that ready by then.
But obviously we will do some testing before, so we will have a chance for those interested to try a bit earlier.
Yeah.
But yes, we need the functioning system for the racing, and breeding will come at least 1 month later because the horse have to be 3-year-old and Pioneer starts as a 2-year-old horse.
I think it's also good to clarify. So there is also a slight difference
yes.
on the Pioneer horses. So the Pioneer horses start as 2 years old, and we mentioned the lifespan is 18 years old. So if you put the math together, that basically means you only get to use them for 16 years or 16 months. Okay, and some might see that as a drawback, but if you think of it the other way, anyway, the first 2 years of a horse's life, they're not eligible for racing, and they're not eligible for breeding, which happens from 3rd year. So what you get from the Pioneer is that you get instant usability or utility. So it's fewer months, but actually those first 2 years of the horse's age for the bred horses are actually going to be months when the stats develop, but you can't really race them. There's kind of a soft cool down kind of thing. So yes, the period is actually shorter because it's 16 months, but then it also means it's 16 months where you immediately get to start to use them. When you also re-roll for a new Pioneer horse, you also get that back as a 2-year-old. So then that means, again, you can get to use it immediately after, versus somebody who gets a bred horse, they're going to have to wait for 2 whole months until it gets to 1-year-old and then a 2-year-old, and then it can race.
There's another question from Raiboto about will our tracks be representing real life? At the beginning, most likely not, because there is always the licensing issue, but I would imagine if we manage to build those partnerships, we would love to do that. Would be definitely fun, but yeah, we want the race. Honestly, we want the main things. We don't want our track to be just a straight line because it's kind of boring. So we'll think how to make it exciting and interesting.
Yeah. Just to add on to that, so I think you've seen from our, let's say, direction and approach is we like to be realistic. So what we can do is we can take a reference from real life tracks. We wouldn't name them after them except if we have the rights, because that's another element for longevity and sustainability, is that we really respect licensing and rights thereof and copyrights. But we will definitely base, let's say, the core. You shouldn't expect to see a fantasy track which looks like a Quinn's head, or maybe it works as a racetrack. But anyway, so this is just a general. There's a question now that Nick is gone. Can we talk about him? No, he will watch the stream. Pep Ukrat
I said the
asking,
opposite. I said we can.
Okay. We have diversity in our team. Look at that. Recently, I saw many CNFTs. We can in text, but not in video. So recently, I saw many CNFTs hit the floor due to price manipulation. We are not really in the place to control or change the market. It's part of the reality of a decentralized market. Some manipulation might happen by third parties. It's not something we control. It's not something we want, but it's also not something we can change. What we will do is we will always support and endorse legitimate places which we already trust and have the relationships with. Have you thought about integrating weather tracking like Cardano?
Sorry, just one more comment on that on top. I would also say that with open mint, where people who really want the NFT will get them, that also makes it slightly less vulnerable to predatory practices, because the NFTs will be spread to meet the demand, and that hopefully will help a little bit to, but yeah, as you said, like we cannot control it, right? It's not up to us. We will not be doing anything on our end that we would deem not correct. And that's also maybe a good moment to mention that as a team, after quite a long discussion, we decided that we actually not be minting any Equine NFTs for ourselves. We would love to do that because we are collectors and we think those are cool NFTs. But we realized that our knowledge of the systems, our knowledge of the game, our knowledge of how the stats work would just be unfair, right? And even if we didn't really use it, or even if we don't, like Nick knows it very well, we know it somewhat, right? Even if we don't know it that well, we didn't feel like this is the right way to go. We want to be super fair to everyone. We want this game to be as fair as possible, and we put any effort we can to make that happen and make that project work on with those assumptions. We might have some test NFTs, you know, just to try the game, and they will not be usable in the main game, but we will, yeah, this is one of those philosophies we are using when developing and designing the project.
Yeah, we basically think it's not fair that we compete with you guys in the game. It's just doesn't sound right to us. So as much as we love our own project, and as much as we'd love to own, for example, some Pioneer Collection NFTs, the four of us, at least the founders, those of us who know the intricacies, we felt that it would be better for us to refrain from that. We could go and buy from secondary. Maybe we might go and buy some skins and collectibles. That doesn't really affect that much, but then we'd also be kind of taking away from the people who can't use them. So it's unfortunate. We'd really love to join that activity, but I guess that's part of the cost you pay for making something, is you don't get to enjoy it like people who end up using it. Thank you everyone for joining us. I hope we have been able to answer most, if not all, questions. We're always open to questions here and there. You guys have our contacts through Discord. You have our Twitter account. Please, if you're not following us, please do so. If you don't mind sharing about our sale coming up, please also do so. It will not reduce your chances of getting an Equine bundle if that's what you want. We appreciate that. We look forward also to your support in the drop and the sale. Thank you everyone for being such a great community. Thank you for asking these great questions and allowing us a chance to answer them. We look forward to having you around, and we look forward to seeing a very bright future for Equine.
Yeah, and same from me. Thank you everyone for taking time. We again spoke for 2 hours, but there's a lot to talk, and we always are passionate about the topic. So thank you for seeing us here, but also sticking with the project. It's been actually insane how we grew with pretty much organically with certain connections that we of course have, but without any major giveaways except that one poster that we gave after 10,000. And also I'm so always impressed how great our Discord is, how people are open to discuss in a civil manner, and even if there is an argument to be made, it's made in the right way. So thank you for your support. We hope to see you there on the 18th. We know our project is very unique and different and might require some thinking because it's also a significant investment, but hopefully we convince you that our vision is worth that. And maybe one very last thing is we will either tonight or tomorrow do a giveaway. So look out for this. We wanted to kind of build the excitement for the drop, so we will actually do a giveaway.
A giveaway for
the Equine bundles. So for the Pioneer bundles, we'll do one on Twitter and one on Discord. So there will be 2 chances.
We hope that this will also maybe give a chance to people who feel that they can't afford, or they feel a risk of from getting Equine because of the price level. We hope that this will give them a chance, but of course it's going to be an open giveaway participation, so even those who can afford to get some can still participate if they'd like to. So thank you everyone. We'll be stopping the stream, but thanks for joining again. We appreciate your time, and hope to see you around. Have a good one.
Thanks.
Bye bye.